Dash here with Rolling Bones. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. We're going to be starting some videos on models that we use for different games that we play. There's not going to be any particular order to these. We will continue with other series. We will finish the Frostgrave series here soon. And today's video is going to be on Last Days and the models that I use for Last Days. We hope you enjoy it, and we will get started with that. Today we're going to talk about Last Days, the Zombie Apocalypse by Ash Barker, who does Guerrilla Miniature Games. The general principle for Last Days is you are a team of survivors trying to find supplies to help you continue to survive. Your opponent is doing the same thing, and zombies are getting in the way to stop that. Each crew member or each team member has a stat line. AP is for action points. That's, you spend those to move as well as interact with objects, open and close doors, pick up things. Then you have a CQC, which is close quarters combat. That is to, you roll against the person you're in base-to-base contact with, whether it's another survivor or whether it's a zombie, and the person who rolls the highest wins. Then you have a firearm skill, and that is during the shooting phase. You roll against that to try and shoot. Then you have a strength, which is included in how you deal damage. Then you have endurance, which determines how resilient you are to against taking damage. Then you have damage quotient, which is your wounds. And then you have courage, and zombies, instead of courage there, have horror, and you use those to, when you get stuck in combat with them, to see whether you can disengage, or if you're stuck in combat just fighting off the zombie. And then you have intelligence, which is something you have to do to interact with certain things in the game. That's just a quick rundown of the stat line in the game and just a brief summary of it. We will eventually do a video on Last Days, but if you're interested, before we get to that, let us know in the comments, or you can go over to Guerrilla Miniature Games. In Last Days, you start out with a leader, and the leader's priorities and alignments will dictate who he surrounds himself with. The different leaders that you can have are the everyday hero, who is selfless, the merciless thug, who is selfish, and the professional, who is trained. When you're choosing your group, after you choose your leader, up to 50% of your team can be chosen from a neutral pool of people that we'll go through later, and only 25% can be from an opposing alignment. In this front row, I have the models that I typically use for my everyday hero. This model here comes from a pack of railroad scenery people that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. I just attached some stuff from other model kits that I have to make her, give her weapons and help her fit with the zombie apocalypse. This guy comes from a pack that I got called the Sons of Ragnarok for a game called The Others. And then this guy came from a special guest pack from the game Zombicide. He comes with, in that pack, it came with him, another survivor, and then 2 zombie options for those survivors. So that's where I picked up those guys for my selfless everyday hero leaders. They can be used as anything in the game, but typically when I'm choosing a selfless leader, it's one of these 3 that I choose for that model. Continuing with the selfless alignment, I use him for my fireman. He's a Malifaux model. I use her for my rescue worker, and she comes from Infinity. And then those last 3 railroad people here are also, I use them for my Good Samaritans a lot of the time if I use a Good Samaritan in my game. The selfish alignment, he's the guy that I normally use as my merciless thug. Most of these guys came out of that Sons of Ragnarok pack that I got for the others. And I chose him as the leader because he's the leader in that gang, in that pack. Then we have the rest of the Selfish gang, and these two up here in the front, I use them for my crony. These two here are the ones that I use just for typical gang members. The bigger guy in the back right here, I use him for my goon. He's a little stronger than the others. Over here you have the Survivalist, and both of those are Infinity models as well. Then we have the trained alignment. I typically choose one of these two for my leader. The one on the left with the baseball cap, he comes from Stargate SG-1 game, and the other guy on the other side, he comes from Infinity. Sarge, who helps the leader. So this is a Warhammer Astra Militarum model that I built for this, and then this is Samantha Carter from Stargate SG-1. You also have a cop. I don't have a good cop model, but this Infinity model is the one that I use for my cop if I choose to have one in my game. These three here are the ones that I use for my soldiers. Again, the front one there is Infinity. The other two are Daniel Jackson and Tilk from SG-1. And then back here, these two back in the back, I use those guys for my SWAT. Again, one's Infinity and one is from that SG-1 game. The last alignment is neutral. These don't have a leader in and of themselves. Things that you have in the neutral alignment are the dog. I picked this one up on eBay. Then you have the tough guy, and I use these. This one is a Malifaux model that I picked up. And then this one is from that special guest Zombicide. Then kids, those ones all came out of the train scenery pack. And then you just have regular survivors. He is from Malifaux. The rest of those guys, the other three, are from that scenery pack, again with just weapons and stuff that I've added to them so that they will fit in the zombie survival. These are the zombies that I use for the game. I picked up these from a Walking the Dead pack from Zombicide. It was a pack of zombies, and then a few of them are from that special guest pack. The book says you probably want about 20 zombies for this game, so this should be good. You won't always use 20 zombies. Most of the time it's less than that, but there are some scenarios where the zombies can come on pretty thick. Some of the other things that you will need for the game are 6-sided dice. That's what this game uses. You will need something to measure with. I like this. Dunn picked this up for me from Death Ray Designs. It's a measuring stick. There's actually two of them that I use for this. Pretty good for a lot of games if you want to pick one of these up. 1 inch on this side, 2 inches on this side, 8 inches on the bottom, and 4 inches on the top. It's not big enough for like the range on the firearms and things like that, so you will want a tape measure. Then you'll need tokens for your supplies and also to use as other markers in the game. For this game, I typically just use these poker chips that I picked up for another game, but I really like them for this as well. Reason I like these for the supply tokens, I can, when my models pick them up, I can just set the model on top of it, and then I don't have to move two things because I can just pick it up by the thing and move them as needed. Eventually I'll probably go through and put pictures of supplies on there so they look a little bit better, but for now this is what I'm doing. The last thing that you need for this game is building, scenery, line of sight blockers, things like that. So this is just a sample of some of the things that I use. Some of it is stuff I've built myself. Some of it is stuff I've just picked up different places. You don't need stuff like this necessarily. You can use boxes, bottles, whatever it is. It's just mostly to block line of sight and being able to hide and maneuver around tactically. And that is what I use for Last Days. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I'll be doing some more on different games that we play, not necessarily in any order. If you have any questions or want to find out more about this, let us know. Hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time.